Well, I was really looking forward to the day, and then me and all my plans collapsed. The Sanctity of Human Life Sunday is honored in January every year by many churches. It's the one Sunday that I get invited to speak at a church in which people expect us to address the sanctity of life and to figure out a Christian response to the reality of abortion. So I got invited to speak to a church here in the Atlanta area and was very much looking forward to it. I had brochures. I had our wonderful little fetal models all ready to hand out. It was a wonderful congregation of people. There was a great spirit in the place. And I got up to preach and I collapsed. I started to get lightheaded. I could see I was losing my thoughts, and I kept thinking to myself, just make your introductions, just get started, get to the passage, show them how God's people are responding to abortion all over the world in life-saving ways. I was very excited about being at this particular church on this particular Sunday. And down I went. Next thing I know, I wake up, and there's a nurse holding onto my head and another nurse at my feet and a doctor looking me over and an ambulance is on the way. And I'm feeling like all my plans have collapsed because I've collapsed. And of course, it's a little bit of an embarrassment to be invited to speak at a church and then to go down like that. I ended up going to the hospital. And the problem really was that I was dehydrated. I had been sick for a couple days before this, and evidently with the fluid losses, I just had not been able to maintain enough fluid to be able to stand up. And my blood pressure went way down to something like 66, something terrible. And down I went. So it's a embarrassing moment in many ways. But it certainly is an example of the inherent weaknesses that we all live with as we go out to do great and eternal things. And it's not the first time in my life where I've had a very exciting plan and looking forward to it and then gotten sick or something else has gone amiss and you're just kind of scrambling. I remember I was once in China and I was going to the city of Lanzhou. And I took an overnight train to get there, and I got sick on the way, and I had a terrible fever. And I had to get to Lanzhou, and I had to speak for about 9 hours that day. I was at all-day training. So I got started, and I ended up doing the whole training from sitting down, which is a very hard thing for a guy like me to do because I'm always active, and I'm using a whiteboard and everything else. And finally, I had to ask a couple other pastors to take over and to fill in the blanks and do other things. But the point of all that is that you don't really lose as much as you think that you're losing because people sympathize with you in your weakness. And they take a keen interest in you. And even in this church, I'm going to get back to this church and I'm going to preach that Sunday. And I already feel much more of a closeness there because the people have come to my rescue before I even got to talk to them about rescuing the weak and the innocent. It reminds me of something that the Apostle Paul wrote. He said, "My grace is sufficient for you." That's what the Lord said to him in his weaknesses. He said, "My grace is sufficient for you. My power is made perfect in weakness." Therefore, Paul said, "I will boast all the more gladly of my weaknesses so that the power of Christ may rest upon me." That really is a life experience that I think God gives all of us in due season. Is that he magnifies our weaknesses so that his own strength shines through all the cracks. And I had one of those moments over this past weekend. I was in the hospital for a day. I'm out of the hospital. I've recovered. I have plans for heading to Mexico almost immediately now. And I just want to celebrate the fact that the kingdom of God uses our strengths and he uses our weaknesses. and that's why we can press on. And maybe in the final analysis, he uses our weaknesses more than our strengths. God bless.